Welcome back. All right, so some news of the day for your Thursday, April 7th, and big news out of San Jose. So Doug Wilson stepped away due to health reasons not that long ago. Feels like it was like a month, 6 weeks ago we were reporting on that. And now he is announcing he is stepping down as general manager. So the San Jose Sharks will leave the interim GM in place, and they will begin a search for a replacement, an exhaustive search is what they're saying, as soon as possible. He is saying that he's stepping down to focus on his health and his family. So, again, I haven't seen what health issue he's been dealing with, but I do wish him all the best. Doug Wilson's been part of the San Jose organization for a very long time. And so it's not going to be the same without him as general manager. There will be Shark fans looking forward to seeing what a new GM might bring. A fresh set of eyes, I think, on the roster and the contracts and everything else might actually benefit the team long term. But again, for Doug Wilson, all the best to him. And hopefully whatever he's dealing with is easier for him to deal with without having to also be a general manager of a hockey team. He'll be able to focus on his family and on his health. The NHLPA met with agents yesterday in person for the first time in 3 years. And so coming out of that, there was a media availability. Elliot Friedman bringing up some interesting points coming out of that. First off, Donald Fir, who is 73, turning 74 in July. There's no confirmation of him having to come up with a succession plan where they'll have to replace him. But this has been in the wind for a while that maybe, he is in his early 70s, and at some point people want to retire. So there is the possibility that either he will announce that he steps down, or there's the chance too that the NHLPA could put out a vote to replace him. There are 32 union reps, and with the right vote, that could mean that his time as the head of the NHLPA could be done. And it does feel like this latest CBA that they put in place to avoid any kind of a work stoppage, it's a good way to go out, honestly. It looks like it's a good deal for both the PA and for the league at this point. And, eventually I would think you'd get tired of the day-to-day with that job. That has to be a pretty thankless job where you'd probably have a lot of complaints from the union. Probably more complaints than compliments, I would think, in a job like that. So, he also stated that he agrees with the National Hockey League that there's this debt that's been built up during the pandemic era here, where the NHLPA basically owes money to the NHL for the shortfall in revenues. And Gary Bettman said by the end of the 24-25 season, that should be repaid. And he says it's a reasonable bet. Donald Fair agrees with him that it's a reasonable bet that'll be when it's repaid, which would mean a huge jump to the salary cap in 2025-2026. Just hoping general managers don't look at that and say, cool, so we're going to make all kinds of money in 25-26. We'll start spending money for that. Because, again, you never know. Things can change. Restraint can be a good thing when it comes to your budget with a hockey team. At least I think so. But we'll see what happens with the salary cap. And the discussion of the Arizona Coyotes moving to ASU did come up. That's a 5,000 in attendance situation. And the NHLPA, there are some concerns about the NHL losing money there and those revenue losses affecting the PA and the salary cap. They're being assured that it won't, that won't happen, and that there's ongoing discussions when it comes to what's going to happen with the ASU situation and the Coyotes. But there are apparently some staff and agents that wanted more pushback. They wanted more of a fight against this than what they saw or what they've seen to this point. But the CBA provides very little for the players to do. The players really can't do much about it at all. And I'm sure there are some situations where they could step in and block something. This isn't one of them. So the Coyotes are going to be there for 3 years. And again, the NHL will do its best. But again, they've been losing money in Arizona as it is. And the plan seems to be one of, here's how we're going to make money in this market. We need a new building. And so this is the 3-year go-between before the new building, which would be coming in right around when that salary cap jump would start to take place, right? All right, so we'll see what happens there. Peter DeBoer, coming out of last night's loss against the Canucks, didn't mince any words, felt Vegas was bad in all areas. There really wasn't anything positive he felt that they could take from that. This is where the schedule right now is brutal. Every team is dealing with an absolutely brutal schedule, and it is going to stay pretty rough until the end of the season. There's a lot of games in a short period of time. So really, this is a matter of Vegas came into last night's game having won so many games in a row, but still being in a tough spot to make the playoffs. And so this loss feels bigger than it would during a normal regular season. Because again, there's so many games in a short period of time. Dallas and Vegas, of course, have been jumping past each other constantly for weeks now. And with that loss, it puts Vegas in a position where, again, their odds of making it and passing Dallas, they're still not awful, but they need Dallas to struggle. And we'll see if Dallas accommodates them or not. But it is interesting to hear a coach saying, yeah, everything was bad. And I think it was. I think it was a rough night for Vegas. I pointed out in the review last night some just weird defensive turnovers that you would not see, especially Alec Martinez. He doesn't make that kind of thing happen. So, yeah, it's a rough game. It's a one-off. But again, Vegas is right on that line. And if they had a losing streak of 3 games, that could be it. That could be all it takes. Aaron Ekblad is back skating, but he's still not expected to be back until the playoffs for Florida. Ekblad being out and the fact that Florida has maintained a really strong record just tells you the depth in the organization and their commitment and just how many goals these guys can score. And if you have them down by 4 goals, they're probably going to win. That's just how it's been working lately. So Ekblad coming back for the playoffs, that's great news for Florida, especially if it's right at the start or at least at some point during round 1. Because for Florida, a first-round exit is not an option this year. They cannot afford to lose in the first round. That would undo a lot of the progress they've made this year. At least I think so. You guys can let me know if you disagree. But it does feel like they need to strike while the iron's hot. They're kind of all in with the Claude Giroux deal too. So this could be their year. We'll see if that ends up happening. Dallas is going to be shorthanded tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Lindell out with an upper body injury. Gurianov, illness, he's out. Peterson, lower body injury, he's out. So none of them are playing, and Wedgwood's going to be the starter. So for Dallas, who again, 1 point ahead of Vegas, 3 games in hand. After tonight, it's 2 games in hand. So they need this win. Without Lindell, without Peterson, without Gurianov, it will test their depth. And so we'll see how things go for Dallas tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are probably going to be looking for redemption after losing that 4-goal lead against Florida, because that's what Florida does. So we'll see what happens. Carolina, pretty simple plan for them tonight. If they beat Buffalo in any way, shootout, overtime, or regulation, they clinch themselves a playoff spot. So that's all that it takes, but they did lose against Buffalo a couple nights ago. Now for Buffalo, sad with the results being as they are, they missed the playoffs now for a record 11 years in a row. The Buffalo Sabres, it is record playoff futility. And the other side of that, too, is that they're going into a rebuild of some sort. And yet, while that clearly seemed to be the plan at the start of the year, I think what they got back for Eichel might accelerate that. And so we'll see next season whether or not, they're in the hunt for a playoff spot. Buffalo needs to make the playoffs. I would say sooner rather than later. So I don't think a long-term rebuild is necessarily the answer, especially since guys like Krebs and Tuck have clearly made things better for them, and Thompson's fantastic, and Skinner's had the bounce back. I don't think Buffalo's that far away from being competitive and maybe finally ending that drought. Ottawa's drought reaches a team record. What's interesting is we remember that Ottawa had one of the worst expansion years ever. And then the second year, they weren't much better. But by year 5, they were a playoff team. Year 5, they made it into the playoffs. They did not make it the first 4 years. With the playoff miss this year, Ottawa sets a new record of 5 years in a row that they've missed the playoffs. So for Ottawa, I think much like Buffalo, I think the idea that there's going to be years and years before they're competitive and into a playoff spot, I don't know how well that's going to sell in that market. Because, again, this was supposed to be the time where things start to turn around, and the expectations next year are probably going to be raised. There's a lot of good young talent in Ottawa. I think their goaltending's been at least good enough to keep them in the mix if they had a roster in front of those goalies that was good enough to compete for the playoffs. So I would think the pressure is really on Dorian next year. This summer, the pressure is going to be on for him to improve the team, and they have to get off to a good start next year. We, of course, with the passing of Eugene Melnyk, we don't know how all of this is going to shake down during the summer and what's going to happen, but I think the pressure in Ottawa is going to be there. I think the pressure on Dorian's going to be much higher next year, but we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding any of these items on the board. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.